Girl, I pushed the record button immediately because I was like, I don't want to miss any of these gems. I was like, we're going to just get rolling because I know the
Oh yeah.
pre-talks uncover so many things and then we forget to talk about them. So I was like, no, we have to talk about them.
Oh,
I know that I cannot stream this into Facebook anymore at this point, but I'm going to
yeah.
post it in there later. Hey, y'all. Welcome back to another episode of the Cosmic Valkyrie podcast. I'm your host, Lynn Louise, the Cosmic Valkyrie, your business coach. I help women create more money in their business through my Evolution 10X method. And today we have a guest. So, I'm going to go ahead and let you introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and who you serve.
Well, hello everyone. So my name is V, which is a short for Véronique because I'm French Canadian operating from my own town in Montreal. So I am a business astrology strategist, as I call myself. So my formal training is ultimately in business strategy and how to grow your business. But then I'm also very spiritual and I became an astrologer. I got formal training in astrology and I had this huge realizations on how the two of my passions could complement each other. So now here I am helping business women finding the path of least resistance to achieving their business goals while doing so, creating a business that supports their lifestyle and energy. Because we forget, and this is like general thing, we have a tendency to forget that yes, it's super important to make money. It's super important to be successful, but it's also super important in doing it in a way that feels sustainable for ourselves. And often this is kind of like going through the window because we want the money first and then we get burned out. So my goal is using astrology to help you design accordingly to your birth chart, aka your soul, a strategy that is going to get you the results that you
I
want
love it.
while feeling awesome.
So I've somehow we ended up as friends on Facebook. I like to call it friend face. And then I was participating in a live that you were doing in a Facebook group, and it was absolutely a blast. And ever since then, I was like, oh my God, she's so up my alley because I love astrology. My mother raised me on it. The first thing that I did when I started my first business was I had my business astrology done. And I'm going to tell you one of the most powerful things I ever had done. And then for a short while, I did some client attraction work around my chart, which also really helped me. Um, but because of your background, there's a couple of things I want to talk about today. First, you're in France right now. You're not in Montreal, right? Second, did you know that I live right across the border from you? I'm in the Finger Lakes, New York.
Really? No, I knew you were in Eastern time, but I mean, Eastern time is kind of vast, right? I
Yeah,
mean, there's a lot of possibility in it.
right.
So no, I did not know you were from New York. No.
I'm not from here. I'm from the South, but we moved up here. We relocated about 7 or 8 years ago. So yeah, I'm just like maybe 4 hour drive from Montreal, but I don't speak French. So I don't know if they'd take kindly to me.
It's kind of divided actually. So there's like a lot of people who are very friendly, especially downtown Montreal, where I'm from, where I live too. I mean, we're used to it. There's tourists everywhere. So of course there are people that speak English. Now, if you raise the questions like, English speaking Quebecers versus French speaking Quebecers, that's another question. But usually we love tourists. We love people who come visit us. So yeah, we're good.
Okay, so there's a couple things I want to talk about um, because we're in a really powerful time. And I talk about this on my podcast and in my mastermind and all that. But I want to go deeper into the age of Aquarius when Pluto moved into Aquarius and what that means for us as far as our business and our voice. Because you're really into marketing, like client attraction, like speaking into your power. And so I want to go deeper into that. And we're also in this fiery energy right now. We're getting ready to move out of it at the end of this month with the Mercury retrograde. But let's dive into the age of Aquarius. Can you like just give us a snapshot of what your own interpretation, what this move means and what it means for us as business owners?
So, of course, as soon as you speak about an outer planet, which is like those planets that are like farther away from Earth, which Pluto is part of, we're talking about more of a collective change of energy because, like, since they're so far away, it takes a bit more time for, those planets to influence us. And they stay in a sign like super long, like compared to the moon that changes sign each 2 days and a half, pretty much. So it's important to know that with Pluto, we have to consider it as like more of a collective movement than a personal movement. Of course, this is going to have repercussions into ourselves, like our business, because ultimately we are part of the collective. So ultimately, I mean, Aquarius is a sign that is much about, change, going against the grain. It's like, all about power back to the people, like creating communities to propel and instigate those longer term changes. But it's also a sign that is rooted into technology. And we already saw it starting happening with like, AI, like all the things that we can do, but also with crypto that is like kind of like going more and more into trends right now. There's like all those bunch like crypto influencers like online.
Again,
So
it made a comeback.
yeah,
I didn't realize that.
yeah. And honestly, as someone who has my partner is like obsessed with crypto. So he knows way more than I do about it. Sometimes I question him about that. But from what I'm hearing, it's something that is actually bigger or getting bigger that us poor mortal who don't know much about crypto, realize. So basically the age of Aquarius is about change. And it's not about like, oh, let's change my hair color change. It's about like deep rooted change on how we want to evolve as a collective and what values and ideals we want to promote as individuals but also as a collective. And we see this also happening online right now, like people want more authenticity. They're tired of like the fake BS. They're tired of this perfect image. They're tired of it all. They want people they can relate to, and they want people who are going to be super transparent about what they're doing, what's happening in their lives, what's happening in their business, and how they came to be the person that they are right now. So the Ages of Aquarius is basically changing how we think, changing how we integrate technology, our relationship to technology, but also our relationship to, you know, how we want to be represented as an individual in the collective. Do we want to be someone who's seen as like being fake, who's seen as like being not too real or realistic, or do we want to be seen as individuals who are approachable, relatable, who are ultimately for the people instead of against the people, pretty much.
Right, because Aquarius is very much the humanitarian.
Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty much.
Um, so when you're looking at this from your own personal perspective, what things are you noticing have changed within you as we move through this energy and went through all that shadow work in Pisces? What have you felt the shifts?
So this is my Saturn return, which is in Pisces. So my Saturn is in Pisces. And this is the year, well, it's not the year, but the Saturn changed last year in Pisces. But, I'm currently through my Saturn return. So for me, this is changing the way that I approach being creative and also the way that I'm being transparent about how I want to be creative and how I want to be perceived. So for me was, I'm in academia, I'm doing a PhD. And the reality is I love what I'm doing PhD wise, but I have no interest in working in what I'm doing right now in my
Mm,
PhD. So for me, it was an era of really making the switches, like the tweaks that were needed into my online business, because this is what I'm seeing myself pursuing after my PhD. Now, if you ask my mom, this is not a good news, but like, for me, this is. So for me right now, it has been very much about being transparent on, what do I resonate with on a creative level? And how can I bring this level of creativity to my people in return?
Ooh, I
So
love
lots
that.
of change.
Yeah, like I know everyone has to be feeling this. I felt it. Like I went through a lot of my shadow work last year when it would go like Pluto and Aquarius for a little bit. And then I'd have like all this ancestral stuff come up that I'd have to work through to prepare myself for this moment. And the shift is happening. And I think it's really important for people to understand that this energy, those old ways, those old spiritual ways of manifesting and living are not in alignment anymore. And that's what you're feeling. Like, this is what's feeling like you're witnessing that things just aren't going to work the same way anymore. And the collective consciousness and really creating that dynamic, like imagining yourself as a business owner, like people used to say, creating a ripple. I'm creating a ripple. I've never said that. As a manifesting generator 6-3 in Aquarius, I am like, no, I'm creating a typhoon of transformation, like the collective that I'm gathering. And that's the way I imagine this energy to be. Like, it's revolutionary energy. And so it's like imagining yourself as this typhoon, not a pebble, not a ripple anymore. And it's part of the collective. Like, it's you as an individual, but how you play into this collective. So
Yeah.
you're an entrepreneur. Let's get into your personal story, because I actually I'm always curious about origin stories. Like, when did you know that you wanted to be an entrepreneur? Like, how
So
old were you?
this Okay, so I think now we always like reflect back, especially like when you're into astrology, like or human design, you reflect back on how your own, you reflect back on your life pretty much and like, okay, like where did I start noticing this? Because like I have like, this in Aquarius and like, things like that. So I think deep down, even when I was very small, like 9, 10 years old, I knew that I wanted to make money. That's my third house in Capricorn, thinking about money. So I knew that, no matter what I was doing, I wanted to make money. And even when I was little, I was always trying to find a way to get money, like, $1, $2 from your parent. Oh, if I do this, like, can I have $5 in exchange or
I
things
was the
like that?
same way.
Yeah.
I think that's a
And
really good thing to bring up, because I think entrepreneurs can look back at that. I was the same exact way. Like, if I do this, can I get some money? I was all about the money.
I'm a very capitalist person. I totally embrace it. I love it. I love capitalism. It's me. Um, and then actually when I was 14, this is when I started modeling. So ultimately I started earning money as a babysitter, like pretty much I think a lot of people, like you babysit and you earn money for it when you're, a teenager. But I think my first big money came when I started modeling at 14, because then you start, getting contracts that are paying 800, like couple thousands. Um, and I loved it. I mean, the industry in itself of modeling is very toxic. And eventually I had to get myself out of this. But as, an individual, like I was loving the fact that I was earning money for myself. And when I started in my 20s, I bought my own window cleaning franchise. I
Wow.
learned how to clean windows and I paid like the franchise fee and because I became a franchisee. And for a whole year, I was cleaning windows, hiring people, getting contracts, getting my team. Ultimately, you guessed it, cleaning windows is not my heartfelt passion,
Right.
you know. But this was my first the true business venture when I was like 21 to 22. And from there, after that, I started stripping.
So how long have
So
you been
this
stripping?
since I'm 22. So now it's going to be 9 years
You
this
know
year
what's
that
really
I'm
important?
stripping.
There's a couple of things that come up for me that are really similar, because I've really been trying to pay attention to patterns with successful entrepreneurs. And I see this running rampant in the air quote business coaching is that all these business coaches that I see out there, the only business that they've ever built is a business coaching business. I have a very strong hypnosis practice, and that is what supports our home. And then I started with the business coaching, and that's my business background. Like that's what I did in corporate America, right? And it's really easy for me to show people, hey, this is how I built this practice. This is how you do it. And I think it's important for people to understand that if you're teaching business coaching doesn't understand the nuances of other businesses outside of the business coaching world, like how to develop the attraction. And they're just like, I see this all the time. They are like, yeah, just do this. Because I'm going to be honest, selling to entrepreneurs that want to make money is a lot easier than selling to women that want to lose weight.
Oh, heck yes.
You know what I mean? And
Heck
so
yes.
I think it's really important for entrepreneurs like us to go, yeah, I have a very lucrative stripping business that is actually the foundation of my, it supports my lifestyle. And now I'm building this astrology business, marketing business, and that's going to be my second business. So I think that's really awesome to hear. I think that's really important for women to hear that, we don't just know how to grow we know how to grow a business because we had to grow another business.
Yeah. And I mean, I totally agree. Like, technically, if you look back at my business experience, like I've been in business for the last 16 years. If you count from the point I started modeling at 14. And then on top of it, my bachelor is in business marketing. So ultimately, it's important in the business coaching that you see a lot of those business coaches that ultimately can only teach one method. And for me, this is not a business coach. This is, let's say you're a funnel specialist, you're a private message special. I don't know, like there's so many specialties out there, like they all
And they
they
just
all
call
like
themselves
they're all
business
exactly.
coaches. Yeah.
Exactly. But no, it's like a business coach is like, if you tell me that you want to sell to businesses, perfect. I'm going to craft something for you. If you tell me that you want to sell to individuals, like women losing weight, women wanting to improve their personal stress level. I don't know. Like I'm going to propose to you something. If you tell me that you want to do private messaging, perfect. We're going to do private messaging. If you tell me that you hate private messages, okay, we're going to find something else. And for me, this comes from experience. Like you had
Mm-hmm.
so many businesses in the past, you had so many experiences, you learn so much that you can pretty much, not necessarily that you do it all for yourself, but you know how to do it all. Like, I mean, I don't do personal DMs, but if you want a strategy to personal DM people, I'm going to give you one.
Yeah. And, learning how to prospect and all that. It's just, I have been in 18K programs that teach me that I thought were going to be like innovative and something new. And they
Mhm.
marketed it that way. And I made sure to ask the right questions before entering into it. And it was the exact same shit that I teach. And I was like, mine is like more in depth, like financial projections, and it's not a marketing, right? It's not, but it's just so crazy that they are very one direction, and they can't see the bigger picture, and they don't know the struggles of women that are trying to build those other businesses. But the other thing that I heard, and I think this is really important too, is that you work you work a business, you are willing to do what it takes. I think there are too many people out there that are promoting like free and easy money, like become a coach and all of a sudden your life's going to be better and all this money is going to flood in and life's going to be puppies and rainbows. And the reality is that any business, and I hate these terms, but I will use them. You have to like put your nose to the grindstone, and you have to be willing to get in there when it's hard and do the work. And at some point, it becomes a little mundane because your systems are finally in place. And that's a good thing. But it's like, there's so many people out there like creating this facade, and not all of them intentionally, that hitting the $1 million, they make it was a lot easier. Like, this is how I did it in 10 months. Okay, but what did you do for like years before that 10 months? You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
And I love those business people that are so transparent. And at some point, I sat down with one of those gurus that I personally very much like. And she was kind enough to allow, accept to have a sit down and just like a casual chat with me. And I asked her because she uses in a promotion like, oh, in my first year in business, I made 200K. Like, it gets to be easy. Like, I mean, when you have the right strategies. And I was like, okay, perfect. Prior you to your first year, what was your audience like? Because two of the things that I really like is strategies and, marketing strategies and visibility strategies. So those are my two fortes, and I use astrology for this. So I asked her, I was like, what was your audience like when you started your first year? And then she was like, she admitted to me that prior to her first year, she spent 8 months building her audience on Instagram, 7 to 8 hours per day for 8 months. She was on Instagram building
Oh my God,
audience.
that sounds like the biggest nightmare ever.
She loved it.
As long as you
For
love
her,
it. How can you? But I'm
I
like,
mean, for her, it was a passion. Like, she loved to be on Instagram, to connect with people, to
gotcha.
post things, go lives, like
But
do
it
the
took her
things.
eight
Like,
months
for
to
her,
get that, right?
it was her passion. And she did it. So she was like, yeah, prior to launching my first year, I spent 8 months purely doing this. So when I launched my first year, of course I had a ready to buy audience because I spent 8 months doing this. And
Right.
prior to this, she had 15 years experience on building different businesses. Some were successful, some didn't, but she gained experience. So she was like, so the behind the scene is like, yes, she made 200K the first year. Amazing. But she did the freaking work for 8 months. She was 7 to 8 hours on the computer and Instagram, like building an audience. And prior to this, she started building businesses when she was in her early 20s, like nonstop. So, of
Right. And
course.
that's the thing to really look at when, like, all the, like, my fellow, entrepreneurs, we've had more than one business. Right. And I've had a really successful business before I moved up north. And when I was down south, I had a really not successful business. Like, I've had both. I've had, really lucrative ones and terrible ones. But it's really important to understand that, like, I forget who it was that said this, but he was like, I think it was maybe James Wedmore. He was like, yeah, I had overnight success, but it took me 10 years to get there. Right. Like, what is your perception on what it's going to take? And as long as she loved Instagram, that's awesome. That to me would be a nightmare. But there are things that I love. Like, I love prospecting. It's one of my favorite things to do. But yeah, like, the reality is that it didn't take her 12 months to grow her business.
No, it took her, technically, if you only look at that business, it took her like a good year and a half. And then under that, only 1 year and a half because she had like 10, 11, 12 years of experience under her belt. So, yeah, she spent all those months growing an audience, but she knew how to, do so. She was just like going all into it.
Right. And you have to want to go all in. You have to understand the importance of your work in this world, and that you cannot not be an entrepreneur. When you're okay,
Mhm.
so when you're looking at somebody's chart, can you tell by their chart if they are, like, if they're supposed to be an entrepreneur, or if this is not something that's going to work out for them?
So I always like to say, so this is something that when you look at my chart, I have a bit astrology. For those who know a bit astrology, I have a grand trine in water. My grand trine is Saturn, Sun, rising. So I'm someone who is overly positive. Who, for me, like, there are no boundaries, there are no limits. There is always a way to bypass boundaries, always a way. So for me, everyone can be an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone. The only thing that you need is a drive to do it. I mean, there are 1,000 ways for you to be successful and to be successful at entrepreneurship. There is a way to build you a business that is going to support your lifestyle and your energy. I mean, my partner used to be a business owner, is starting a business again, and we have totally opposite way of doing business. Like there's nothing similar. He hates social media. I love social media. He loves SEO. I don't even have a website. Okay. So it's like opposite. Um, so when I look at your chart, I'm not going to be the one to tell you you cannot be an entrepreneur. Okay, that's not me. If you want to be an entrepreneur, I'm going to help you, but I'm going to tell you what is going to be easier for you, what is going to be harder for you. I have a client, for example, what she has issues with is budgeting, you know, making her money work, making investments. And that I can see because her Jupiter is in retrograde. I mean, usually people with Jupiter in retrograde have a bit more issues or difficulties to expand. That can be because they have difficulties like seeing on the long term, or it can be depending on their placement because they have difficulties budgeting on the long term. For example, there are some people that are going to be very good business owners, like running their own business by themselves. There are some other people I would be like, well, I would suggest for you to get into a partnership with someone, or to surround yourself with people that have maybe a bit more drive, have maybe a bit more fire to keep you motivated.
Oh my God. So this is great information. Like I'm going to tell you, when I had my business astrology done, and it was when I was moving my business online. So like my other business, my boot camp and my hypnosis practice, that was already in place.
Mhm.
And I realized that owning an online business was going to need some tweaking, and I was going to have more understanding. And I was like, business astrology. So I had it done, and it gave me so much insight, like so much insight into what I'm here to do and what I'm supposed to be known for and that kind of stuff. But it really makes sense because like I have some clients that see themselves with business partners or collaborations. And it would be really good. Let me ask you this. Are you somebody that if somebody was thinking about having a partnership with somebody, that you could help them like look at their chart and see like how that person is going to should interact and the boundaries that need to be set and all that kind of stuff? Would you
Of
need?
course, I even did charts for people that were wondering if they should work together.
That's
I was
what I
like,
was going to
perfect, give
say.
me that
Like
person's
that,
chart.
it would be important information right there. Like like
Yeah.
how to work together.
I even have, and this is actually very frequent for me. I have my clients when they're going through things, they ask me to look at their partner's chart to know what are going to be the challenges in their partnership following, I don't know, like Mercury retrograde or like this specific transit. So she's like, I had like this done twice during eclipse season, like businesswomen coming to me that were experiencing like different types of situations. And they were like, okay, how is that going to evolve with my partner? Is that going to create some very difficult situations, or is it going to be smooth? And I was like, perfect, let's do this.
Right? Like eclipse season, y'all. That was so rough. It was hard, but hard isn't bad. And I'm sorry, those that are watching this, you'll notice that my camera, I have a really difficult time with electronics. They like blow out all the time. I can tell like my camera on my computer, it's just getting ready to go. It does that crazy stuff. But so can you give any tidbit of advice on like what to expect for May? Like what would be something that everyone could like look towards May at maybe what they should reflect on or move into. And I'm not talking like moon energy, like you can do moon energy, but you know what I mean, like something that might be out of the norm.
So in May, on May 25th, to be very more specific, we have Jupiter that is going from Taurus to Gemini. So what you need to know is that Jupiter is not necessarily thriving in Gemini. Um, like it's doing its thing, but it's not where it's going to be able to express itself at the most. Like right now it's in Taurus, and Taurus is great for Jupiter because Taurus is about, expanding your lifestyle, enjoying like the finer things in life, grounding into what you consider being luxurious, what you consider, and Jupiter is great for this. Gemini is about communities. It's about, you know, um, wanting to learn more, wanting to dabble into everything, wanting to meet new people. Um, and Gemini's is also like a very not unstable energy, but it's also like a two-faced energy. It's sometimes like bipolar. It's like, you love something and then all of a sudden you're just like not interested anymore. You're going to the other thing. So the reason I'm saying that Jupiter doesn't necessarily thrive in Gemini, because Gemini is already so kind of like a bit over the place as an energy. So when you put Jupiter in this, which is like about expansion, about abundance, it just like amplifies this. So for some people, it can be great if you want to build new communities, if you want to expand your membership, if you want to write a book. If you want to write a book, guys, like the next year and a half is going to be amazing for you. If you want to write a blog too, it's going to be amazing. But if you're just like a business owner that is already a bit ADHD, who has ADHD, who's like having a difficulty to focus, this might be a harder time for you. So take it easy. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. Like, sometimes when we're like, we have ADHD, or we have like trouble focusing, or we have like some kind of, attention disorder, it's hard because we want so much for ourselves. We want to get so much done. So I would say to get easy on yourself, okay? Like, don't don't overplan. Like, don't um sometimes we like to overplan, which like, oh, this year I'm starting a membership, this year I'm starting two programs, and then I'm going to be in like five different conferences. Like, give yourself smaller objectives, maybe like one bigger goal.
So what is
Take it one
Jupiter
day.
known for?
So Jupiter is the planet of abundance, expansion, luck. It's very like I always say when I picture Jupiter, I see Jupiter as being, this man in a casino that's like wearing a tux and is just like at the poker table with like all the chips and looking very confident and like betting and like making money. Like he's there to make money, he's there to make his
Love it.
wallet grow. He feels lucky, he feels good. For me, that's Jupiter.
Okay,
Like,
cool. And then
the
you're blending that with the Gemini. Now I can have a clear idea of how it might be a little
exactly.
gambling with your future. And entrepreneurs often already get sidetracked with, like, we have so many ideas. And the one thing that I always I have a lot of women that are attracted to me that have open head centers. I do not.
Oh, yeah,
Mine are closed.
I
And
do.
so I'm always like, come back down, get down here. We need to talk about, because they're always like, and then I have this idea. And I'm like, you have to write down your ideas and then you have to let them sit there while you build your bridge. And then when you finish that bridge, then you can come back to it and look at the next one, which one still resonates. Because as entrepreneurs, we're visionaries. We always are going to have ideas. We're always going to be creative. That's never going to stop. And really learning how to contain that within like a structured freedom and work with the tools that you have to be able to go, okay, I'm going to put that there and I'm going to wait. So this in May on the 25th, for how long will we be in the Gemini energy?
So usually Jupiter stays in one sign for about a year and a half, depending on retrogrades, period in time.
Right.
So, I mean, it could be worse. It could be Pluto, right? Um,
Right.
or it could be Saturn. Saturn stays in one sign for 2 years now.
Right.
So Jupiter for the next, like I would say until June, at least June 2025, Yes, 2020. I was like,
Okay.
next year is
So
supposed to be 2020.
I see why it's like writing a book this would be a good year for that.
Yeah, I have
Okay.
a client that has a lot of Libra energy, so already a lot of air energy, and she wanted to write a book. I was like, girl, get writing.
So it would be important for people like when they're, because of course, my whole audience is all into all this. So when I'm thinking about this, when you're looking at your chart, let me ask you this. Where is, what house would you look at for money, and what, like, so that they can look at their chart and see where like maybe money is better, or those stories that they need to, you know what I mean. My
So the
audience
typical
wants to make money,
houses.
girl. My money want
Oh,
they
I
want.
want to make money too. I mean, I love it. I told you, I love capitalism. Love it. So the typical money house that I would say is the second house. So if you want to know how, you can generate money fast, well, I mean, fast is relative, but like as easy as possible, I would look at what sign is ruling your second house and what elements are in your second house, because the sign is the how. So it's like, for example, my second house is ruled by Sagittarius. So it means the how for me is quick actions, having fun, and not think like releasing control, like not thinking too much about it, just doing what feels good for me. And then the elements, like if you have like Mercury, if you have Jupiter, like what planets, like what elements do you have in your second house are going to be the what. So
Oh,
what tool can you best use for yourself to achieve the how in the money department?
oh, I'll have to do a little
So
looking into mine.
yeah.
That's so fun, right? Like just knowing like a little basic understanding is just so much fun. It can unlock so much for you. Okay, so I want to ask you, how can people find you? Do you have a community, or do you have a place that you show up on social media since you love it so much?
So my two besties on social medias are Facebook and Instagram. So
Okay.
you can find me on Facebook under Véronique Lacroix. I mean, I guess the name is somewhere in this conversation, so you can copy
Yeah,
paste it.
I'll make sure to put the link to your
There we go.
Facebook. Definitely.
And same thing on Instagram. I mean, you can either search with my name because you're going to find me. I made sure of that. Or you can search with my handle, which is oracle underscore V, VEE for V. Those are my two main hangouts. I answer to DMs in the 24 hours.
Okay.
There are links in my bios with everything that you need to know how you can work with me. So it's pretty simple, straightforward if you want to jump in. I have a membership, which is like more of a community thing. So we gather for full moon. So this is like very community oriented. So if you want to learn astrology, might not be for you, but like it's a great community vibe if you want to use moon energy. And then I have an astrology program if you want to learn astrology,
So
depending
I'm
what you
all about getting to the nitty gritty. How much is the monthly membership for people to join?
$27 a month.
27?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And do you do one-on-one chart readings?
Of course. So one-on-one chart reading is going to be 197 for 45 minutes. And you have the opportunity to buy and upgrade, which is a all week on Voxer with me. If you have questions, because like we all know that live, we don't necessarily have the questions, and then we think about it, and 24 hours later, we're like, oh, I wish I asked that to be like perfect, you have a whole week.
That's awesome. What a great deal, too. Like, definitely worth upgrading. Perfect. And then you have a learn astrology on your own program. That's so much fun. I'm one of those entrepreneurs that I don't want to learn anything new. So I'm always like, I mean, I don't want to learn a trade. Like, I'm like, no, you just read it for me.
You know what? If that, I have a waiting list that is currently open for a new membership that I'm working on. Where if you're one of those entrepreneurs that are like, I don't have the patience to listen to a 10 class model to learn astrology, well, this is going to be for you because my membership is going to be a mix between membership and mastermind. So you're going to get access to me through different ways. Like you can ask me questions. We're going to have a Q&A, but we're also going to have a monthly masterclass where I'm going to teach you something new about astrology. So it's very light. You get access to me if
Yeah.
you want to ask me questions about your business that
Right.
is not necessarily astrology related or not. Um,
How
so yeah, the waiting
fun.
list is open for that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Put me on it. Put me on it. I'm so excited about, like, I'm one of those people that someone was telling for years, you got to learn human design. And I would look at that thing and I was like, no, I don't. So then I just hired somebody to read my chart for me because I'm like, I'm 57 years old. I don't need to learn another modality, right? Like, I'm not going to teach it, but I love learning more about myself. So I'm like, ooh, yeah, I want to know more about me, about how I work. So awesome. Okay. Any last thing you want to say before we sign off today? Anything that you haven't shared that you want to remember?
If you want to start a business, no matter if you want to do it through astrology or not, or have your chart read or not, remember that consistency is key. Okay. And when I mean consistency, like it's more than 2 weeks. Okay. For me to build my momentum, it took me 3 months and a half of showing daily, consistently, and launching, giving free master classes, talking about my stuff, boosting my visibilities, getting into different spaces. It took me 3 months and a half of me showing up 6 days out of 7 a week. So remember, consistency is the key to your success. Remember that.
So much. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thanks for having me.